If you think trans athletes playing in women's and girls' sports is a problem, then you're both a dumb and a hateful piece of.
It's crazy how swearing at us and calling us names doesn't change our mind. How about that? Hi, my name is Sydney. Welcome back to hell. And as per usual, before we launch in, today's video is sponsored by Fume. So I have been brought a lot of joy recently, bringing all of you stories about this sort of collective return to normalcy after so many years of doing the exact opposite. Everyone seemed to completely lose their minds for a while there. I really do think that the big sneeze broke so many people's brains. Remember when they filled in skate parks because people might get a sniffle? I remember.
Pepperidge Farm remembers.
Anyway, obviously the current state of things is not perfect, not by any stretch of the imagination, and weird things do still continue to happen, but I do love seeing everything seemingly moving in a more logical direction. At least for the time being. And this has been happening more and more and more recently with relation to the transgender movement, and more specifically with relation to men in women's sports. And July has had just a bunch of developments. It's been a busy month for transphobia. What can I say? The latest being that the US Olympics and Paralympic Committee have officially banned men from competing in women's events. According to a policy change on their website and a letter sent out to sporting bodies, the organization said that it has an obligation to comply with Trump's executive order, signed back in February, that is designed to keep men out of women's sports. That executive order, among other things, threatens to pull funding from organizations that allow trans-identified males to participate in female-only competitions.
Female athletes have been forced onto the front lines, and men claiming to be girls have stolen more than 3,500 victories, that's a lot, and invaded more than 11,000 competitions designed for women.
The left are also taking this about as well as you'd expect.
The Olympic Committee has barred transgender women from participating in women's sports in an effort to comply with a Trump executive order, and it's bullshit.
I was a journalist and I covered this issue for a long time, and it is one that both is discriminatory and also thwarts research that we have about gender, athletic performance, and transition.
My favorite thing about these people is how they so obviously do not give a crap about women. They do not care about female athletes, they only care about this perceived victim group. And honestly, I think that they are What I want all of you to dip your brains in and absorb about this situation is that the US Olympic and Paralympic Committee oversees about 50 or so governing sports bodies, and it has instructed them to also comply here. Without getting too in the weeds on this, because it is a little bit confusing who governs who and what guidelines people have to follow and yada yada yada, some of them have already been following other guidance about this, like USA Track and Field, for example. And others will start enforcing new restrictions in the coming months, like USA Fencing, which will only allow females in the women's category, and everyone else will compete in the men's. So, okay. I mean, this one's not a total slam dunk, but I guess we gotta take the wins as they come. The they-thems are the men's team's problem now. That sounds so wrong. Men's teams? Men's team. Men's team? No, because it's possessive. The men's team's problem. The men's team's problem. The man team has a problem. I don't know. We also still have the International Olympics Committee doing all sorts of dumb stuff, especially after all of the Amin Khalif drama, who some of you might remember from the Paris Olympics, the boxer who is allegedly male, and that information has reportedly been confirmed with leaked lab information. So, you know, there's that. Do you guys remember when the International Olympics Committee wanted to fight anyone who argued this point? That was a lot of fun. That was a fun period of time. The point is, in my opinion, this ban is actually great news. And more than that, it actually kind of signals this growing shift where we're seeing a lot of common sense policies being enacted and taking place that will protect women and girls and stop men from invading our spaces. We are seeing sanity return all over the place, from the Olympics to college campuses to high schools to even niche sports like fishing. Yes, I learned, researching for this video, that the fishing people have rules about this. So that's cool. I really do think that the fishing people are very cool and interesting. But you want to know what else I think is really cool and interesting? Stopping your bad habit, which is why today's video is sponsored by Fume. It's hot girl summer. Or hot boy summer, if you're a boy. And you want to know what's a tenet of Hot People 2025? Being healthy, of course, and looking after those little lungs of yours. Because you only get one set of them. This isn't a sci-fi movie. So rather than inhaling gross chemicals and smoke, why not try trading one bad habit for a better one? Fume. Fume is this nifty award-winning device designed to stop any hand-to-mouth habit. It uses no heating components, no vapor, and no batteries. Instead, all you have to do is pop your preferred flavored core into your device and breathe. And Fume has a huge range of these cores, with options like crisp mint or my newest favorite, sparkling grapefruit. Like, look at how pink and cute these are. And guess what? If you're a tropical kind of person, Fume just released their newest flavor, mango, just in time for summer. And let me tell you, this smells so good. Fume also has such a good range of devices and add-ons now, like their Solano Fume, this magnetic base to hold your device, and their newly dropped Fume toppers. And it's pretty straightforward. These fit over your mouthpiece for an elevated experience. So if you too want to be kind to your lungs and do a hot person year 2025, then click the link in the description, scan the QR code on screen, or go to tryfume.com/Sydney. And don't forget to use code Sydney to get your free Fume topper when you order a journey pack. We had a similar ban come into effect in February of 2025 when the National Collegiate Athletic Association, that is a mouthful, I tell you now, the country's largest college sports governing body, outright banned transgender athletes from women's sports. Now, this is an interesting one in my opinion because it probably partially gave way to what also happened a few weeks back when the University of Pennsylvania agreed to ban trans-identified males from women's sports, rescind Leah Thomas's titles and awards, and apologize to all the female swimmers who were affected by its insane policies over the last number of years. As most of you likely know by now, transgender swimmer Leah Thomas caused a ton of controversy by not only competing on the UPenn swim team against women, but also winning competitions and robbing actual women of their titles. There is so much terribleness that went on here, such as female swimmers being forced to change in Thomas's presence, feeling very uncomfortable around this intact male, and that's obviously just one example. There was a lot of ickiness that took place.
Well, I'm sure everyone knows who the wonderful 6'4.5" giant Leah Thomas is. He was my teammate. He went on and obviously tied Riley at the NCAA championship, which everyone saw, the ridiculous photo of them together on the podium stand. But he was my teammate, and my university, the University of Pennsylvania, told us if we ever spoke out against him being on the team, that we would never be able to find a job, that we would be painted as a hateful, disgusting bigot for the rest of our lives. They even compared not wanting to undress in the locker room with him 18 times per week as not wanting to undress with someone based on their race in the 1960s.
Wait, was that was said to you by employees of University of Pennsylvania?
Yes, they said,
Wow.
This is the next civil rights movement. You don't want to be known as those bigots in the 1960s that wanted to segregate locker rooms based on people's race.
I think the thing that I will never get over with relation to the trans issue is how men exposing themselves to women in locker rooms and bathrooms and this kind of thing kind of got glossed over completely, because that person doing the exposing identifies as a woman, and then we ended up with terms like girl dick. It's just genuinely so wild to me that we have seemingly come out of this period of time where saying, actually, women don't have male genitalia makes a group of people lose their minds. I don't know what to do with that.
So, actual woman is a term often used by trans exclusionary radical feminists. You may also hear them use the term adult human female. TERFs have this bioessentialist way of thinking in which they define actual women strictly based off of biological sex assigned at birth and having certain reproductive anatomy like a uterus and ovaries.
Anyway, on the Leah Thomas front, for years, this was a person who was backed by many people at UPenn and the university in general. Meanwhile, the women who tried to speak out and say something and say, hey, this is not fair, were shamed and bullied and probably harassed. But that has ended. And honestly, I think what the university had to do here was akin to a little bit of a like a humiliation ritual, a little bit of a struggle session. And you can think I'm a terrible person for saying this, but I'm here for it. UPenn was instructed to restore to the female athletes all individual UPenn Division I swimming records, titles, or similar recognitions, which were misappropriated by male athletes allowed to compete in female categories, issuing a public statement saying that the university will comply with Title IX and will not allow males to compete in female athletic programs, and send a personalized letter of apology to any female swimmer who was affected. And they did, because they probably don't want to lose their federal funding. And of course, here as well, liberals have reacted to this exactly the way most of you probably imagine.
Crazy is conservatives on Twitter or whatever other site are going, oh my God, yes, thank God, something has finally been justified. Get these men out of women's sports. And this Riley Gaines bitch that got 5th place, and she still is 5th place, is like celebrating like she won an Olympic medal. Now, I don't know about you, but I have enough going on in my life where I don't really keep up with college athletics unless they're a sport that I either played or I like watching. And I've never really given a about who finishes 5th, 6th, 7th in a women's swimming meet. And I'm sure the people that are mad about this never once cared about women's swimming before Leah Thomas got 4th place.
I watch a tremendous amount of leftist content, so it's just not very often these days that something genuinely bothers me and gets under my skin. But this guy made me so mad. Because it's certainly one thing to be a woman who is ideologically captured by intersectional feminism and liberal feminism, but it's quite another to be a man who is arguing this hard for something that doesn't affect him. Colin is definitely attacking actual women here very hard, and I think we know why. He really likes the girl Dinkle Dangles. Now, while these have been the major events that have taken place recently, they are absolutely not the only ones. And the Trump administration and other governments around the country have been pushing this issue extremely hard. When I say pushing it, I mean like pushing it away, pushing it into the depths of somewhere dark and scary. In early July, the Justice Department filed a lawsuit against California for allowing males to compete in female events. I mean, I do find this quite ironic, given that only recently the state's governor, Gavin Newsom, was saying this.
Would you say no men in female sports?
Well, I think it's an issue of fairness. I completely agree with you on that. So that's easy to call out, the unfairness of that.
This dude will say anything to get elected as president somewhere down the line. No joke, he would sell his parents if it meant that he could get slightly further ahead. That is 100% the vibe that I get from Gavin Newsom. The lawsuit says that California's current policies on the issue violate Title IX. Title IX, for those of you who don't know, is a law that prohibits sex-based discrimination or harassment in educational programs or activities. Anyway, the Justice Department said that California's rules are not only illegal and unfair, but also demeaning, signaling to girls that their opportunities and achievements are secondary to accommodating boys, and honestly, like, yeah, basically. I'm also astounded that Pam Bondi and Lisa McMahon, which, by the way this lady's name is spelled, that is totally not pronounced McMahon, but okay, Americans. They made this video that was borderline threatening other states that if they don't start protecting women, they're gonna find themselves in the same position. So, again, very interesting. This is certainly a change of pace.
We've made it very clear. Only women in women's sports under Title IX. An example in California, a boy who was in track and field. He would have lost every race. Yet in women's sports, he won over 36 medals. Those medals should be returned to the women, as well as no boys will be allowed in women's locker rooms. No longer. We have sued Maine. We're in litigation with Minnesota. We've sent multiple letters. And if you do not comply, you're next. The Department of Education and the Department of Justice, we will protect girls in girls' sports.
The U.S. Department of Education has actually opened a series of investigations into other situations at universities and schools around the country around this issue, reviving old lawsuits where female athletes tried to defend their rights but were ultimately shot down. Also, in mid-July, we had the Florida Attorney General issuing a demand to U.S. Masters Swimming, which is a non-profit that offers swim competitions, events, and training, to ban males from women's competitions and entering women's locker rooms. Why this is still a thing, I have no idea. They threatened legal action if the organization does not reverse course.
This is not acceptable. It does not fly with Florida law. We will use every tool at our disposal, from our civil rights laws to our anti-discrimination laws to our consumer protection laws, to ensure that we are protecting women and girls.
Then we had several sporting bodies from around the world upholding bans on men and women's sports, as well as female athletes themselves continuing to push back on this issue. In early July, veteran cyclist Julie Cutts-Peterson refused to take the podium next to the trans-identified competitor who had beaten her during the race. Peterson claims that USA Cycling failed to disclose that a male would be competing against the women, which a lot of them were very leery about to begin with and wouldn't have competed had they known. A trans-identified male called Sadie Schreiner, what a name, is suing Princeton because the university barred the athlete from participating in the women's 200-meter race at the Larry Elvis Invitational in May 2025. Once again, in early July, because I guess July is the month of transphobia, a group of teen girls decided to sue the state of Oregon over its laws that allow trans athletes to compete in girls' sports. Two of the girls, Maddie and Sophia, refused to compete against a trans athlete back in April and subsequently forfeited their event. If we look abroad, we know that the UK recently legally defined what a woman is. It's so embarrassing that that even had to be done, but good, I guess. And that ruling has absolutely started affecting all of this, with some sports bodies basically saying, yep, sorry, you can't compete if you've got the dingle dangles, no competing against the women. No. So obviously, like I have already said throughout this video, the response to all of these situations has been basically the same across the board from progressives. This is so discriminatory, it's so bad.
If you think trans athletes playing in women's and girls' sports is a problem, then you're both a dumb and a hateful piece of shit. And let me explain why. Number one, there are less than 10 trans athletes in the NCAA. That's right, less than 10 in collegiate sports.
And I also keep seeing this argument being made that female athletes just need to suck it up because there are so few trans-identified male athletes competing against them. But like other sane people have pointed out, this is a totally crazy position to take. I saw a comment left on one of Amir Odom's videos that basically said that implying this is not a problem because there are so few trans athletes is like saying only a small percentage of athletes use steroids and therefore they're not really impacting sport enough for it to be a concern. And yeah, that's about the size of it. This is such a weird position to take with relation to women's sports and how this might affect the women who have to compete against men, because although the vast majority of women probably won't, there are women who do, and it's not fair on them. Then there are the former athletes who say crap like this.
But I think any high-level athlete who has something to say about trans athletes is a BITCH, and they have BITCH mentality. Regardless of what sport I'm playing, I really don't care what the gender of my opponent is. It really doesn't matter to me. If they win, that means I have work to do. I didn't train hard enough. I didn't train the right things hard enough. I didn't get in the gym and push myself hard enough. Regardless, I still lost. And I need to do better.
Imagine trying to make this argument about contact sports. Like, oh yeah, I'll just do better next time once my face grows back. You'll just do better next time? You will? Okay. Yeah, so how about you go do some MMA and then you come back and tell us how you can out-train that man who punched you in the face. Ugh, absolute frickin' mongoloid. Anyway, despite the screaming from the usual suspects, I really genuinely am so happy to see things finally trending in a logical direction. And honestly, I actually am really glad to see that some of these sports bodies are doing these things and changing their policies voluntarily because they are realizing that this is in fact unfair to their female competitors. I really love making these kinds of videos where I rapid fire situation after situation after situation that hopefully paints a picture that things are changing, that things are positively changing, even if it is incremental, because at least for me, it gives me hope that maybe at some point in the very near future, we will finally be back to doing things from a rational standpoint. And regardless of what all the bleeding hearts have to say, in my opinion, female athletes are entitled to compete against other female athletes, and they're entitled to do so in an environment that is safe and fair for them, and not have their titles taken away from them, not have to forfeit and lose competitions because they don't want to go up against men. And in the end, although this issue never ever should have gotten to this point and never should have gone this far, I am really glad to see that it seems like we are finally turning a corner, and hopefully we can in fact go back to the status quo. Now on that note, and before I open the floor to all of you, this is just a reminder, check out Fume using the link in the description. As you guys know, they have been a big supporter of this channel, so if this is something that you struggle with, absolutely check them out and see if Fume works for you. Now I open the floor to all of you. What do you all think? Are you on my side of this issue, where you think, yep, I am so glad to see that this issue is also falling in a heap, just like many of the other components of the trans movement? Do you think that it's terrible that this is happening, that it is discriminatory against trans people and they deserve to be in the sports that they want to play? Do you think this is overall a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Do you think that female athletes need to speak up more and more if they want to see this issue accelerated more and more? What do you think of California being sued? What do you think of the Trump administration going so hard on this issue with the other states? Is that good? Is that bad? And what do you generally make of this issue overall? As always, if you have made it this far in the video, congratulations. I always like having you along for the full ride. If you are new here and you're not subscribed to the channel and you would like to see more of me and more of this kind of content, feel free to subscribe, as well as leaving this video a like and a comment, because I do read the majority of them and I really like hearing your feedback. Of course, I hope you wonderful little chickadees make good choices, stay safe, and don't do anything silly that I wouldn't do, and I will see your wonderful pretty faces in the next video.